Do you want to take this shot?
Oh, no, I'm okay. I'll be okay now.
He's with me.
I already heard this story.
That's my husband. He just thinks he gonna wander around. So I'll introduce myself in a traditional way. Talalakam sistas, the Hobchad. My name is Fighting Woman, and I'm Snohomish. Sit Vidas Waklam. I am the daughter of the Seamonster man, and I've been a cultural educator and storyteller for about 27 years, and I really love being able to share the teachings of the indigenous. Today we're going to share a couple of stories that are from here, and one that I thought was from here my whole life until about 10 years ago, and I discovered it wasn't ours at all. It was just something it was just a story my dad told us, and but he had learned it when he was young, and it was a Lenape story. But he would just change the words into Lashutsi, and so I always thought it was ours. And then a decade ago, I found out no, it is not. But I'm going to share it today anyway, just because. We're going to talk about the crows today. We're going to talk about the crows. All right. Did everybody eat lunch? Mm-hmm. Oh, good. Okay, because this story might make you hungry for some crow. A tooty-too hawk, a long time ago. A long time ago when the world was new, crow babies were hungry. Crow babies were hungry, and they were squawking and squawking and squawking, and they were yelling out, feed us now, we're hungry, we want to eat now, we're hungry, feed us now. And so Crow Mama went, what do you want to eat? And they said, we want seal. Oh, okay, said the Crow Mama, and she headed out to the Hulsh, down to the beach, and she was walking along, and Raven had heard all the crow babies squawking. And so he was really interested in how she was just going to find a seal, you see. And so he followed her down the beach. One crow hop. And pretty soon she walked down the beach, and the Dokhoibas, the changer, he laid out in front of her a giant bed of oysters and clams. And oh, she looked at that, and she pecked at those clams and oysters for a minute, and she thought, nah. She said, my babies want seal. We don't want these. And she kicked at the clams that the Dokhoibath had laid out in front of her. You know, our people have a saying, when the tide is out, the table is set. So, she didn't want it. And she kept walking down the beach. And Raven couldn't believe it. He was like, she just, the changer put out all this food, and she kicked it. Oh, Raven couldn't believe. He was going to watch now, because he knew there was going to be a lot of tea spilled. So he followed her down the beach, and down she went. And she went farther and farther down the beach, and pretty soon Dokhoibath had whoosh, threw up a big, juicy fish up on the beach. And surely Crow would have taken it, but no, she didn't. She pecked at that. And she said, no, we're eating seal today. Raven thought, oh, wow, wow. She's got some noisy kids. She went down the beach, and she went down the beach. She went down the beach. And what do you know? There was half a seal. Probably because blackfish had bitten it. And it was laying up on the beach. And she said, there's what my children want to eat. Raven couldn't believe it. He thought, wow. So he hopped up behind her. "Hey, Crow, what are you doing?" Now, Crow had a basket wrapped around her head and hanging on her back, like this. And she put her back to that grandfather raven, and she said, "I'm taking this seal home to feed my children. We're going to have a feast." And Raven said, "Really?" And he said, "Can I help you?" Now, the correct thing to do would probably have been to invite her elder to the feast. But she just said, "Yes, you can help me." And she turned herself in a little better position to her back to him and waited for him to put that seal in her basket. So Raven thought, well, he started picking up the rocks and dropping them into the basket until he thought, well, does that weigh as much as a seal? And he dropped, and last one he said, "Oof." He got it over the top, and he said, "There's the tail." Oh, and she went, "Great." And she started walking down the beach. No invitation, no thank you. So Raven watched her for a minute. I mean, he could have told her, "Hey, it fell out." But he just dragged the seal home by its tail to his house. And he began to cook. And he began to tell everybody, "Hey, I got a seal. Everybody come and get a little when it's ready." And he told all the people along the way. So as Crow Mama was getting herself back home, she was hollering out, "Ha, ha, ha, ha." She was telling her children she was coming and to get all the potlatch dishes out. Get out all those wooden bowls. Get ready, we're going to eat. We're going to eat. I have seal. She got up to her house. Oh, that was a really heavy seal. Oh my goodness. She got up into her house and dumped the basket out. And potlatch dishes broke. They were wood after all. That was a lot of rock. And the crow babies were like, "Hey, we're hungry. We want to eat now. We want to eat right now. We want to eat now. We want to eat now. We're hungry. We're hungry. We're hungry. We want to eat now." And the crow mommy looked at all those babies and she said, "Go see Grandfather Raven. He's got the seal." Oh, those little crow babies squawked their way all the way to Grandfather Raven's house. Oh, they were really mad that they had to go all the way over there to eat. And oh, they just busted right in the door. A circle door, not a Boston man door. They went right through the door. And they said, "Hey, we're hungry. We want to eat." And Grandfather Raven said, "Oh, really? You're hungry? You want to eat? Well, I'm cooking it. You'll have to wait." And so they sat and sat and sat. And Raven was in the hudali, in the place of the cooking fire, now called a kitchen. And he was sipping, and oh, it was going to be yummy. And he was looking out his windows, also circles, not like a Boston man window. And he was calling out to the people, "Get ready, it's almost time, it's almost time." Yep, it's almost time. And all the people were kind of lined up outside of his window, waiting to be fed. But those little crow babies were really squawking now. And they're like, "Hey, we're hungry. We want to eat. We want to eat now." And Raven came out of the hudali, out of the kitchen, and he said, "Why don't you sing? Why don't you sing?" It's a traditional thing for us to sing for our food when we come to visit someone's house. So often, like in Canoe Journey, you may have seen people ask to come ashore and say they want to share songs, they want to dance, they want to be fed, you see. And so he told those children to sing, to sing. So they were in the living room and they were singing until they didn't have any more voice. And then they started complaining again. We're hungry, we want to eat now. And Grandfather Raven came out and said, well, why don't you dance? It's not done yet. And so they marched around the living room dancing and singing, waiting for that seal to get done. But while they were dancing, Raven was sipping his big potlatch basket. You know, we didn't have pots and pans. We had baskets and bent boxes with hot rocks put in the water to boil. And he was passing out bowls of soup right out his circle window. Not a Boston man window. Oh, he was passing it out. Everybody, thank you, Grandfather, thank you. Thank you for feeding us today. Oh, Raven was happy. He got to feed a lot of people this day. Oh, he was so happy. And pretty soon those little crow babies were in there squawking. Really squawking. Oh, what in the world? I'm sorry, my hair is just like all in my face. I apologize. So what could they just, and he waited till, oh yeah, that's about done for them. And he said, go ahead, get what you need. And those crow babies shroom, right into the hudali and looked into the soup basket. And there wasn't anything in there except the bones. And they couldn't believe it. And Grandfather said, you've gotten what you deserve. Now take them home. Just wait. Now, our traditional stories don't have a beginning and a middle and an end. They just are. And the lessons, because we don't have a word for story, again, I know I've shared that a lot. We only have the word for teaching. And so the teaching for every people, every different person is going to be different. The thing that you took away. When I was younger, I took away that, man, you better say thank you. Hey, got a little older, learned how to ask nice. You know, but there's hundreds of things to think about. And an elder would have told a story, or even another adult would have told a story, maybe to correct just one child, but you know, all the kids were wondering what they did. Did I say thank you? Did I do this? Did I do that? Did you put your back to somebody? Was it rude? What's correct sometimes in modern culture is not correct in traditional indigenous culture. It's very different. It's very different. So on to another crow story. A tootie-too hop, a long time ago. A long time ago when the world was new, Crow had some babies in her nest. She had eggs. She had about 7. She had about 7 eggs in her nest. And, oh, she was really looking over there at what was going on. And so she left her nest. She left her nest. And she went out wandering, and she came back a few days later, and some of her eggs were really cold. Well, she moved them aside and sat down a little. But then something else happened, and she was really looking over there. Oh, she had to go check that out. What was everybody squawking about? She needed to go look. Now she wandered, and she wandered, and she didn't come back overnight, but Hawk had also had some babies. And she was watching. And she realized that those babies were cold. And so she went over and she felt the eggs, and she sat with them for a little bit. She felt that a few more were cold, but maybe they just needed to get warmed up. And she left them just exactly how Crow had left them. But she sat on them for as long as she could till she had to go back to her nest and sit on her eggs. And Crow had come back finally a couple days later, distracted with life. And a couple more of her eggs were cold, and she moved them aside. She went out a third time, because boy, there was some other noise somewhere. She'd gone out a third time. And Hawk watched. She came over, and she sat, and she thought, uh-oh, there's only one egg warm. And so she sat and sat and sat with that little egg, and sat as long as she could until she needed to go back to her nest. And Crow came back, and she moved the other eggs aside and sat on her one egg. But you know what else? Something was going on in the neighborhood. And Crow had to go see what was going on. And oh, the minute she left, oh, Hawk was watching. She was watching and watching and watching. And oh, pretty soon she couldn't help herself. She had to go over there. She had to go over there and sit with that egg. She had to go sit with that egg. Oh. She had to go back to hers. But then the night came. It's not like the bird people to go out in the night. Not all of them. But Hawk had noticed that Crow did not come back. And so Hawk went over and got that baby and brought that baby to her nest and sat with that baby with all of her eggs. And she didn't see Crow again for a very long time. And the day came when all the eggs started to hatch. All the eggs were hatching. And the last to come out was a new kind of hawk. Oh, this baby was the last baby, and it was the runt, and it was just different. But it was Mama's baby, and so there it was. And when all the hawks were learning to watch and all the hawks were learning to fly, the hawk baby learned how to fly too. And learned to do all the things and came and got fed. Oh, and learned to go look for food. Oh, just like a hawk. Just like a hawk. Just like a hawk. And one day, Crow saw Hawk with a crow baby. And she said, "You took my baby. That's my baby. That's my baby." And Hawk said, "No, that's my baby." And she asked the baby, "Who are you?" And the baby said, "I'm a hawk." But Crow was just upset and angry, really, really upset and angry. "That's my baby. That's my baby." And Hawk said, "No, she's mine. She's mine." And so Crow went to go tell Eagle that Hawk had stolen her baby. And so they sat in front of the eagle and spoke. And Crow, she went first. And she told all her tellings. And then Hawk went. And then she said, would you like to talk to my little fledgling? Would you like to speak with my baby hawk? And Eagle said, oh yes, I'd like to speak with that baby. And in came Crow, walking just like a hawk. Last, because it was the last to crack its egg. And Eagle asked, is this your mama? Yes, this is my mama. It's my squaw. It's my squaw, yes. Oh, and have you always been with this mama? As long as I know, said the baby crow. The hawk. The hawk. And he said, would you like to go live with this mama over here with no baby? No, I don't want to live there with that mama. I don't know that person. Oh, okay. And so it was decided that that crow was a hawk. And that baby stayed with that family. Now for all time, hawks will watch the crows. And for all time, Crow has learned to sit with her babies and fight for them. Has anybody ever got pecked walking past crow's nests? For all time, they remember. They remember something that happened to them. They are very smart and wonderful, and they learned to change. We are children of the changer here in the Salish Sea. Dokoibach, Labatea, the transformer. And we have the ability to create change within ourselves and within our generations by the power of the changer. This way.
Oh, nice.
How much time do we have?
All you want.
Oh, okay.
You can have it all.
Okay.
You have half an hour according to the museum schedule, but you can have it all.
Okay. Lovely. I'll take what I can get. All right. So, here's the story that I thought was a Coast Salish story when I was a little girl, until I was an old girl. And it goes like this. A tootie too hot, a long time ago. A long time ago when the world was new, Crow had all the colors of the rainbow in his plumes. Oh, he was beautiful. Beautiful. And he had the most divine voice ever. Ever, ever. He had a beautiful voice. And he loved singing for the people. He loved making the people happy when they were sad. He loved coming to sing for them when they were sick and help them along to be better. Crow loved to be the helper. Crow loved to be the healer. He was a good, good person. But one day the north wind came with some white stuff. And it just started falling on the ground. Falling and falling and falling. And pretty soon all the people were circling up going, what in the world is this? And Crow was watching, and he would sit on a high, tall branch on a tall tree and watch down, and he started coming down a little bit to listen to what else was going on. And pretty soon, Crow had discovered that nobody could find food. Nobody could find the roots. Nobody knew where the roots were because they were covered in this white stuff. Nobody could see any bark. Nobody could see where they could eat. Nobody knew what they were going to do. And they were all freezing. They didn't know where to go. They didn't know what to eat. And so they were cold. And Bear had come into the circle first. And he was really warm. Stuffed wood was really big and really warm. And all the people swooped in around him to get some of that heat. They could just get a little warm from Bear. Oh, and you know, Wolf and his pack came in. And they laid down at Bear's feet. And everybody, oh, the wolves are warm. Oh, and people just came and kept coming and coming until the circle was just a big circle of people trying to get warm. And then they started talking among themselves, saying, somebody has to go talk to the Sky Father. Somebody has to go talk to him, and somebody has to tell him to tell the north wind to blow this stuff that he brought away. Blow it away. Oh, everybody was so cold. And Bear said, oh, I'm really strong and I can get to the top of the tallest mountain and I can call out to the Sky Father. And everybody said, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, Stuffed, you go. Go, Bear, go. And then somebody said, but wait, he's keeping us warm. And he went, oh, okay. And he stepped back into the center of the circle and everybody went, had to get cozy again. And then Wolf stretched out and he said, you know what? I have a really strong voice. I can run to the top of the tallest mountain and I can call out to the Sky Father and I can tell him, would he get this stuff blown away? Could he get the north wind over here? And I'll tell him, I'll call out to him. And everybody went, yeah, Wolf, you go. And then Wolf's wife said, excuse me. If you go by yourself, that means that you're sick and you will die. So you can't leave the pack. You have to stay with us. And he thought about that for a minute. Well, I'm going to stay with you. And so one by one, other members of that village, other people came forward and said, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. And everybody would find a reason why they shouldn't and why they should all stay together. And Crow finally thought, hey, wait, I'll fly to the Sky Father and I will ask him. Because I'm over here. I'm over here. I'm not down there with you right now. I'm right here in this tree, right here. And everybody said, Crow, you would do that? And he said, of course, I'll do that. I'll go. And they said, fly, Crow, fly. And Rainbow Crow flew. And he flew all the way to the top of the tallest mountain, to the top of the tallest tree, because you know they're really short on top. And he sat there. Oh, and he took a rest, because that was a long ride. And pretty soon, he jumped into the sky. And he was doing tricks with his beautiful feathers and his wings, and he was singing songs to the Sky Father, and he was singing and singing and singing and going around and around and around and around, and the Sky Father never said anything. Nothing. And Crow went down to the tree to take a rest and a cry. He was so sad. He didn't know what he was going to do. He didn't know how he was going to go back and tell the people. How can I go back and tell my people the Sky Father didn't answer me? And he cried because he thought how they would die down there, cold. Cold they would die. They couldn't find food. They didn't have warmth. They needed the Sky Father. And Crow began to cry, really, really big tears down his beak. Bloop. 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 And the Sky Father called out and said, hey, Crow, what's going on? Why are you crying down there? And Crow said, oh, are you talking to me? And he began to wipe his beak and wipe his tears from his cheeks. And he said, I came here to tell you something and to ask you And you didn't answer me. He said, you didn't ask me anything. I thought you were entertaining me. You asked me nothing. You were just out there doing tricks and singing. You didn't call out to me. You didn't ask me anything. What is it you need? And Crow said, well, the north wind came and he brought all this white stuff and it's really cold. It's really cold and nobody can find food. And we don't know where to look for the food now. We can't even see it. And the Sky Father said, okay. And he said, well, we want you to tell the north wind to come blow that stuff he brought away. And the Sky Father said, well, you could ask the north wind, but I can't tell him. And he said, why? Why can't you tell the north wind to blow it away? And he said, oh, the north wind has his own spirit. He's his own being. He's his own being. You must go ask the north wind for what you need from him. And Crow said, I don't even know where he lives. And the Sky Father said, north. And Crow said, okay. And he started flying north, and he flew north a long, long time. And he began to wonder, uh-oh, what if I can't get to the north wind's house before my people die? What if I can't get to the north wind and find him before they starve, before they freeze? Oh no. And he started flying back because he thought if everybody was going to die, he was going to go with them. And he took a breath at the tree that he had taken his rest at. And he began to cry again because he didn't want to go tell the people that he couldn't help them, that he didn't have anything to help them live. And so he began to cry, boop, big tears down his beak. And the Sky Father called out and said, Rainbow Crow, what is going on? And he said, my people are going to die. I don't know where the north wind's at. I'm not going to find them before they die. And I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, please help me. And he said, well, why didn't you ask me in the first place? Oh. And so the Sky Father said, go down and get the biggest, longest branch you can carry. Go get it and bring it to me now. And so Crow went and found a really big branch, the biggest one he could carry in his mouth. And he brought it up to the Sky Father. And the Sky Father said, I'm going to give you something. I'm going to give you something. You go down and you bring it to the people. And that white stuff will melt away. You find it. Out sent the Sky Father a giant orange flaming ball. And he lit the end of that long branch that Crow had in his mouth. And when it was lit and going really good, he said, fly, Crow, fly. And Crow flew back down the mountain. And as he was going, the flames were going over the top of him and singeing him and burning him and hurting him. And and the soot and the singeing of the flames. Oh, it was hot. And his body was burnt black. And the closer he got down to the people, the more smoke and closer the flame had come. And all that smoke went down into Crow's mouth and into his throat and into his lungs, and it burned his lungs. And he kept going. He loved his people so much. He kept going. And he came down and he went around the circle of the people, and then he dropped that flame right in the center. And as he did that, the snow started melting away, and the people could see that there was wood on the ground and branches, and they started pulling in branches, and building a fire, a giant fire, like the one inside Stubtwood's hutch in Bear's Heart. And oh, the people started grabbing other sticks and catching them on fire and melting the snow away and looking where they could find the roots so that they could eat. And they were warm, and they were eating, and they were so happy. They were crying and hugging each other and looking around for Crow. But Crow was hiding way, way up to the tallest tree, way, way up high where they couldn't see him. And he was crying and crying and crying. He hurt so much. He was in so much pain. And the Sky Father looked down and he said, "Hey, Rainbow Crow, why are you crying?" He said, "I'm not a rainbow. My plumes are ugly. They're burnt and black. They're ugly. They're so ugly." "Oh, Crow," said the Sky Father. "Oh, it's going to be okay, Crow." And then Crow said, and my voice, it said, "Ah! I can't sing. I can't sing for my relatives. I can't make their heart happy. I can't sing. My voice is ugly. It sounds horrible. What an ugly voice." And the Sky Father said, "Oh, Crow, Crow, don't you know that when you get a bath, all of your wings and all of your plumes and everything around you and on you is still going to shine like a rainbow when I shine on you. Rainbow Crow, you are still a rainbow." And Crow said, "And my voice." And the Sky Father said, "Well, there's some two-leggeds, and they're coming. The two-leggeds are coming, and they're going to be really, really dirty people. And they're going to lay a lot of stuff out for you to have to eat. And you know, they're going to be hungry. They're going to be hungry. And you're going to need to call out to the people with your new voice. You're going to need to help them and tell them that the two-leggeds are here to run away so that they don't become food. Run." And Crow thought about it. They said, "Okay." And the Sky Father said, "You know, life changes every day. We change, but your service hasn't changed. The thing that you love to do to help, you're still going to help. And now you're going to more than help. You're going to save lives." This one. Poor Crow, we give him a lot of plastic, don't we? He doesn't get no good roadkill very often. We are so dirty. We have to think of better ways to walk on Mother Earth, and it has to not be with plastic. We have 5 garbage dumps in 5 oceans across Mother Earth. Some of them are 2 miles deep from plastic. Microplastic. The fish are eating it, thinking it's phytoplankton. That doesn't make for very healthy fish. Do you want to eat plastic fish? There was a whale woman out here. She died a few years ago. She was full of 80 pounds of plastic. She was full, but she was starving and she died from plastic. There was a whale woman out here about 8 years ago whose baby died because she was eating so much plastic and didn't have enough room for fish in her tummy to feed a growing baby that was inside her tummy. And her baby was stillborn, and she pushed it on her nose 4 times around the Salish Sea. She encompassed the entire Salish Sea 4 times and kept her on her nose for all the world to see what they were doing to her babies. And on the 4th time around, she let her baby go. We really have to rethink what it is to be a human being. A story I always share every time I tell the teachings. A tootie-too hawk a long time ago. A long time ago when the world was new. The plants and the trees, they believed they were people. A tootie-too hawk a long time ago. A long time ago when the world was new. The winged, all of them, they believed they were people. A tootie-too hawk a long time ago. A long time ago when the world was new. The 4-legged, they believed they were people. A tootie-too hawk a long time ago. A long time ago when the world was new. The beings in the water, the salt water and the fresh water, they believed they were people. A tootie-too hawk a long time ago. A long time ago when the world was new. The human beings, they thought they were people. This story. So relative. Hey, that sounded like a happy crow. Would anybody like to share some reflection about something they thought about or something they learned, or just anything they might want to share? You know, I'm a blind girl teaching, so it's better if you just holler out, because I won't see your hand up, probably not. So, is there anybody who'd like to have a reflection?
You're a wonderful storyteller.
Well, thank you. But
We all really enjoyed that.
thank you very much. But I'm talking about what you learned.
No plastic.
No plastic. Hey. Hey.
The tone of love in your voice when you spoke as the creator to the crow who forgot to ask for help was perhaps my favorite teaching. That you can put on a show, and and I'm entertained by all of your striving that's just about what you need, but it's not asking for help. And the minute that you really need me, I'm there. That was very beautiful in your voice.
Thank you.
And I thought it was very interesting that there is a crow who has been here the entire time that you have been speaking.
Yeah.
You didn't know that.
Well, I heard him over here, yeah. But they always come when they hear their stories. They always come. I actually have crow feet over every window and every door wherever I live. I painted in red. I have a murder of them that I feed. There's about 26 now. They're about 26 deep. And they all have their own voice. And there's one that always says, "Bah." And I'm like, okay, and I go in and get a little more dog food because they don't want plastic. So I feed them extra kibble and leftovers. They love leftovers.
It reinforced for me the importance of being clear about your intentions and not presuming that other people can read your mind. And they are this guy.
Yeah. Hello, Crow.
Hello, Crow.
Everybody should say his name in Lashutseed, and it's not poop. It's ka ka. Ka ka. There's a yeah, that's right. That's right.
Looking around.
I
Yeah.
was thinking about your first story, and when Crow did not take the shellfish and then did not take the fish, my first thought was she wasn't being grateful for what was given. But then she found the seal, and I thought she waited for what she was truly looking for. And you know, there's a lot about that story that's about gratitude and being
Yes.
thankful. But she knew what she was looking for, and she didn't settle. And I think that we get so wrapped up sometimes in making sure that what we have is okay,
Right.
that we don't wait for the Creator to provide
What we need.
what we want. It wasn't even
Sometimes
what
what
she
we
needed.
want, yeah.
It was if she was just looking for what she needed, the shellfish was
Enough,
enough.
yeah.
But she really wanted to give her children what they wanted. And you know, maybe they needed to learn the lesson about being grateful.
Because there's a balance.
But
Right.
but there's a balance.
Yeah.
There is a balance, and
Yeah.
it was just, you know, I kind of felt like the moral. I know that's not the point.
I have no morals.
No morals. No morals. But it's the only word I can think of right now that is, you know, to show gratitude and show respect for elders, and but for me it really stood out that sometimes you are grateful for whatever is provided, and sometimes you wait for what you truly want. You work for. She kept looking for it. She didn't wait for it to be delivered to her. But you hang on, because what you truly want will come if you work hard enough and wait long enough. You just have to remember to be grateful for it when it comes.
That's very true. And you know, traditionally, when young people were wanting to learn something, like maybe they wanted to be a fisherman, or maybe they wanted to be a weaver, or maybe they wanted to know the plant medicine, or maybe they, you know, the things that they were thinking that made them happy, where they could help in their village. And even today, you have to wait a long time, because a lot of the elders are watching the kids, they're watching the young ones and looking to see what they're especially good at, and then try to pull them into that. But sometimes the thing that they're especially good at wasn't what they wanted to learn to be good at, right? And so then they had to go ask an elder to teach them, and we still have to go ask an elder to teach us how to do something. Like, let's say cedar weaving, cedar bark weaving, for example. A real traditional teacher might make you wait a long time. You might ask years. Sometimes you won't. You might have to ask months, a lot of months. But sometimes it turns into years, because that person knows that you're good at something else, and they want to know that what their knowledge that you really want it. So you got to show up. You got coffee in hand. you got a little bit of something. You have a little bit of honorarium, not in the form of tela, but maybe in the form of poetry, or maybe in the form of something else that you made with your hands for them. Some piece of gratitude that elder finally gives in and says, okay, I'll teach you. And then, because they want to not have their craft die, and you change your mind and go into do something else in your life, you know. So those little pieces of gratitude are really important things to hold in your pocket, you know, carry it around with you. You know, sometimes we forget gratitude, and we got to pull it back out of our pocket and go, oh yeah, that's what it is. And let me put that back there, and I'll keep it till I need to remember it again. Because us human beings, we're the last to come. Just like, you know, every time I tell stories, I always talk about all the people, not just the human people. And we come from a place of respect and wisdom, generosity and courage. We have these values, no morals, right? And we have to remember those things, and they're a huge part of who Indigenous people are. is the way to walk. And here we are together to help, to push forward together, to be together, to learn together, to learn to love all the things and the wonderful things that Mother Earth provides us with, and figure out how we can use our voice so that other rotten human beings can't destroy it. You know, we have to figure out how to stop polluting, and just even with the littlest things in our home, you know, again, I want to say microplastics are our killer. If you have polishing beads in your toothpaste, that's microplastic. FDA says nobody's eating toothpaste unless they're 2, right? We don't go, ooh, give me some of that toothpaste so I can swallow it, right? We're spitting those microplastics, those beads that are polishing our teeth, down the sink and out into the whoosh. And clean and clear, especially the ladies who want to have bright, shiny skin. Things like those polishing, things that are microdermabrasion. Make sure you look on the back of your packaging, and if it says poly anything, that's plastic. That's plastic. Use some apricot seeds. You know?
Loofah.
Right, loofah. Yeah. But then again, loofah, is it real? Are we stealing it out of the Salish Sea and out of the oceans of the earth to wash our shiny faces? There's so much better stuff that we can figure out, you know, to scrub our faces with. Coffee grounds and sugar work great. Coffee grounds and sugar and coconut oil, or, you know, hard coconut.
I just learned that coffee grounds can purify water by absorbing toxins. I used to take all my coffee grounds, instead of pouring them down the sink, I bury them in the backyard.
Yeah.
You'll have to follow
And
this up. But
that's
I
right, your
think
flowers will love it too, because you could take, even though hydrangea's not indigenous, but let's just say it was. If you have a hydrangea bush in your yard and you put coffee grounds on one side of your bush and water it, and you put all your eggshells on the other side of your hydrangea, the roots on one side of the hydrangea are going to change your hydrangea flowers to be pink and light lavender colored and white, and the coffee grounds are going to make them deep blue and purple. Yeah. So that happens with all kinds of indigenous plants as well, though. You'll change the colors of your bleeding heart. You know, you can change the.
Go back to the first story, because for me, that story, a big takeaway was about the downsides of enablement.
Hey. Yeah.
And coming from a family who are prone to addictions, that really hit home with me.
Yeah.
You know, both sides pay dearly for doing things for others that are enabling. Like Mom, she suffered greatly
Yeah.
carrying rocks for the babies because
Yeah.
she thought she was going to make them happy instead of teaching them lessons about being satisfied and content with what was available. There's
See-
another great story. I think it's an indigenous story, and I'm not going to get it quite right, but a person who finds themselves in great difficulty and prays to God, and one person is after another, well, things happen, and they don't recognize that what's happening to them is a benefit, okay? This is a terrible way to tell a story. But eventually the person appeals to God again about why they haven't been rescued, and God says, well, I sent you this person, and that person, and that person, but you didn't recognize it as being of me. You were waiting the big deal. Anyway, where am I?
So,
Thank you for sharing your reflection and what you learned. I mean, that's why I'm saying all the things, the thing that this woman here thought about that touched her heart, and the thing that touched your heart was different. But everybody can relate to that, right? I mean, you know, as an Indigenous woman, our people are not without addiction in our families and in our communities. And just as a woman, I'm not. You know, I forget to be grateful, and I work hard as a mom to do what I can for my children, and sometimes I forget about myself, or that I know better, that I know better sometimes, you know. So I think that we have this great spectrum of personality, life experiences, you know, and it takes a really long time to learn how to be a human being, I've been told.
You know, I love when you referred to, you know, whale woman. And recently I read a book, Barbara Kingsolver, and she talked about how if we would attach pronouns to trees, a he, she, a they, you know, the whale, would we treat them differently? And we probably would.
Yeah, I shared, I share a lot, but about the trees being people, all of the beings being people. I mean, I share it at every teaching session. I don't care if you heard me 2,500 times, you're going to hear it every time you hear me teach, because that's the way we lived, with that kind of respect for all the people, not just the human people. We weren't just about us. We have to think about how we can do that again, and we have to, you know, help each other remember that, you know. And the other thing I always share is I was ripping all kinds of rhododendron leaves off when I was a kid, off one rhododendron bush that was long-lived before my father was born. When my father came into existence, that rhododendron bush was there. And so my daddy would be almost 100 today, well, 93, and I was going to pay Jabba the Hutt money. And so I was ripping the money, which was a rhododendron leaf. And he's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I got to get $26 to pay Jabba the Hutt." What? He said, "What? What are you doing? This tree is older than me. This bush is older than me. Did you ask it? It's a kaya. This is a grandma. Did you ask her for these? Did you ask her? Did you tell her I'm playing a game and can I have some? No, you just came up here and ripped them, so I'm going to show her that I'm ripping yours off too." And my daddy pulled out 26 hairs out of my head, off the top, down the side by my ear, underneath, asked me if it hurt worse, up or down. No, really. And said, "Oh, thank you. I'm going to lay these here for the birds and for this rhododendron to enjoy, because you took hers without asking." I will remember forever. I'm never going to forget that rhododendron was a person, and that it deserved respect, and that I didn't give it any. Right? But I can also laugh, because I was just learning how to be a human being. Right? And not everybody has to be nice when they're teaching you how to be a human being. You know, I think there's a lot of times in this world now where we're walking on eggshells with one another instead of speaking plainly. You know, in our culture, or at least among my people, if a grandma or a grandpa or an uncle or an auntie didn't yell at you and tell you, "What are you doing that for?" They didn't care about you. They didn't love you. We grew up knowing if they're smiling and hugging you all the time, they don't really like you. It was the aunties that really gave you the whooping and gave you the talk and made you feel like, oh, okay, and you knew that you were in trouble. But you know what? When you were in real trouble in life, they wiped the best tears off your face and gave the best warm hugs. And we knew we were loved. So if aunties and uncles and all those people weren't cussing us out, we knew, beware. That's not somebody who really loves you. Because if they didn't care about you, they wouldn't correct you. Yeah. And we have to, I feel that we have to start, all of us living like that again. And, you know, I walked absent-mindedly into a group, I'm blind, and I just walked. I didn't see. There was a few women sitting there, standing there, and I walked through the center of them, thinking that this person was just the only person there. But I should have maybe looked around a little bit more. And one of those women said, "Hey, you little whippersnapper just walking through the middle." And I'm old, but I'm still there, whippersnapper. And, you know, I had to turn around, and I got kind of indignant at first because I'm like, well, I'm blind. But I didn't say it out loud. And I looked, and I realized what I did. And I said, you know what? That was really bad of me. I was not paying attention to my surroundings. Forgive me. And one of the old grandmas in that little group of women talking grabbed my hand and squashed it. She said, "It's okay, girlie." Okay. I'm okay. I'm okay to get yelled at by one and still told I'm okay. It doesn't bother me to get yelled at. My thin skin can grow thick, and it doesn't hurt me. Yeah. Anybody have anything else? Because I think, if not, it's about that time. We might have to beg Delva for an indoor story time in September. Sit downstairs.
Could you teach us how to say thank you in Lushootseed?
I wish.